this video, I'm going to show you the most important Google ad metrics to track. I'm going to explain what each one means and the adjustments you want to make to your Google ad campaigns depending on the data that you see for each one. So I'm in a client's Google ad account. I've used this as an example before. It's an interior design company. And to get started to show you these metrics and the adjustments you need to make based on the data you see, I'd like you to go into the campaign in question, select one of your ad groups, or you can just do the whole campaign, and then come into this keyword section, and you should see something that looks similar to what I can see right here. Now, the first Google ad metric that I want you to focus on is actually one that's not displayed here by default anymore, but if you go ahead and click on columns and then select modify columns, and then what I'm going to do is pop in here, just search for quality score, and I'm going to add in both quality score as it is there, and I'm also going to add in quality score historical version of it. The reason why, because the campaign I'm showing you was actually initially started, it ran for years. It was initially started a long time ago, and it's going to display the historical quality score data as opposed to the more recent one. Now, what we can see here is that we've got quality score and it's a score out of 10. The newer version isn't demonstrated for this campaign, but will be very similar. You can apply what I'm about to tell you to that as well, if that's what you've got. And what you're looking for here is a higher quality score. The higher quality score, the better. So where we've got 8 out of 10, that's good. 7 out of 10 is decent. 10 out of 10 is fantastic, and you can obviously go down and through the list. In terms of benchmarks, anything below 6, something to worry about. 6 or 7 is okay, but could be improved. 8+ is really quite good. Happy days. What happens if you do see a low quality score? Well, often quality score is a signal of lack of relevance. So let's say, for example, your ad isn't quite matched up perfectly with that keyword that you're seeing a lower quality score for, or the landing page isn't quite matched up. The solution to that is to break certain keywords out into separate ad groups, use more specific landing pages, and there you have greater correlation. So for example, in my business, if we were advertising both our Facebook advertising services and our Google Ads advertising services under one landing page and trying to use the same ad, perhaps just trying to use a catch-all term like digital marketing, that would likely result in a lower quality score. Whereas if we separated those out into separate ad groups, got really specific with the terms, send people to specific landing pages, that quality score is likely to increase. And quality score is important for a number of reasons. It's a good determinant of relevance, which is going to help with your conversions, which is obviously what you're running a campaign for. So it's actually it's a good proxy metric for how is my campaign going to perform, perhaps before you have significant conversion volume data. But it's also an important signal to Google around the quality of your campaign and your ads as an advertiser. And the way that can impact your results is that Google will actually charge you less, or it kind of works the other way where they won't penalize you and charge you more to reach the same people, to put your ads in front of the same search terms than if you have a low quality score. So it can be a really important metric, definitely something to keep your eye on. That's the fix. Not one that's automatically displayed like it used to be, but still worth modifying columns, taking a look as I have just done there. So the next Google Ads metric that I'd like you to track is CTR. And CTR stands for click-through rate. Click-through rate refers to the number of people that clicked on your ad versus the number of people that saw it. You can see here we've got 8.37%, 9.27, 6.87. Anything above 10% is absolutely fantastic. This obviously just applies to search campaigns. Between 5 and 10%, okay, you want to be up closer to the 10% if you can. Below 5% is often when we would look to make adjustments. But it's an important metric, right? Because we want as many people that see our ads to click on them as possible, provided we're putting our ads in front of the right people. And it's going to follow through to how many conversions we generate. It's also another signal to Google around the quality of your ad campaigns and all that sort of stuff. If you are seeing low click-through rates, could be a number of issues. Perhaps your ad copy isn't compelling enough. So try recreating some ads, putting in some more compelling headlines, things that are going to really help sell that click. You could also have relevance issues in terms of the keywords. If you're seeing low click-through rates, one of the most common reasons is that you're using perhaps broad match keywords or keywords that are kind of related to what it is that you offer, but not absolutely bang on. And of course, that means that some people who search for that and go, that ad's not quite right, they're not going to click. So getting more granular and specific in that sense can be really beneficial. So those are sort of two things typically to keep an eye out for. Write better headlines, particularly in your ads, but better ads in general, more compelling, sell the click more, perhaps be a bit punchier. And are your keywords a bit too broad, a bit too irrelevant if you're seeing low click-through rate? You want to get that as high as you possibly can. And talking about click-through rate leads us nicely onto cost per click, this average CPC column over here on the right-hand side, because your click-through rate is going to affect, in part, your cost per click. But this is a really important metric to keep an eye on. You can do quite a lot to improve your cost per click. I've already talked about the things you can do to improve CTR. They will have an impact on your cost per click. Obviously, you want to spend as little as possible per click. That's going to result in a more profitable campaign. But it is also worth being aware that certain keywords, certain industries in general, have much higher average cost per clicks than others. You may be able to do something to affect that. So it might be that within your industry, there's say 80 different keywords that you want to target, and perhaps 20 of them fall into a much more expensive, much more competitive niche, and the average cost per click is much higher no matter what you do, no matter how good your ads are, no matter how specifically matched your ads are to your keywords and all that sort of stuff, they're just a lot more expensive. Well, if you have the option to then target less expensive keywords that perhaps also convert, you have to back this up with conversion data. I'll talk about that in a minute. Maybe that's an adjustment that you want to make. This is something that not a lot of advertisers do. They just sort of think, these are the keywords I want to target, I just have to pay the price. Not always the case. Perhaps you can find alternatives that can help you reduce that cost per click, and obviously that's going to help feed through to the return on ad spend you're getting and your cost per conversion. So if you haven't already, I'd check out my video on how to find keywords for Google Ad campaigns. There'll be a link in the video description below that'll help you with finding the right keywords and perhaps finding some that are less competitive, less expensive, and that can make a big difference to your results. Next Google Ads metric is your cost per conversion, which is actually hiding just off screen. We've got it here, cost per conversion. You can also look at your return on ad spend. It will depend on how you've got your campaigns configured and your conversion tracking set up within your Google Ad account. But this is the most important metric, either cost per conversion, if all your conversions are the same, let's say you're generating leads and you can't assess quality when someone becomes a lead at that point, or if you're actually selling products and you can look more on the return on ad spend side of things to see exactly how profitable your campaigns are. But this is what determines everything. If the other metrics that I've talked about are not looking great for say a certain keyword, but your cost per conversion is good, you don't want to do anything. This is the one that overrides all the others, the one you look at first. You then take steps back and start looking at the other options if that's not where you want it to be. Now, obviously, to have a look at this, you're going to have conversion tracking set up, something I would strongly recommend all Google advertisers do. And if your cost per conversion is bad, but the other metrics that we've looked at is good, so let's say you've got a good quality score, you've got good click-through rate, you've got good, relatively low CPC, then you start to look at other things like the landing page. Is the landing page where you're sending people getting the job done? I would argue it's probably not if your cost per conversion is high. And also, is your offer good enough? What is your introductory offer? With an interior design company like this, we're using a free consultation. That's fairly standard, fairly simple, nothing wrong with that. But a lot of people get that initial opening offer wrong. The other thing to factor in with your cost per conversion is you have to know what you're willing to pay for a lead, for a sale, whatever conversion looks like for you. For a business like this, you can come in and see that £150 cost per conversion seems astronomical, but this company was very specific with who they wanted to work with. So on the landing page, there was a lot of pre-qualifiers and things like that that would put off their non-ideal prospects. And this company was much happier to pay more in terms of cost per conversion to have higher quality leads, because it's an interior design company and the average customer that went ahead would be worth somewhere in the region of £50,000 to £100,000. So £150 cost per conversion is fantastic. For other businesses, you might need a cost per conversion, in this case leads or whatever, that's a tiny fraction of that. So you have to work out that number, work out what you can profitably afford to spend to acquire a customer, and factor that in and use that when assessing your cost per conversion or your return on ad spend metric. And another Google Ads metric that I like you to take a look at and keep an eye on is search impression share. So it's not one that's demonstrated by default, but if I go ahead and click on columns, modify columns, and then we'll search up here for search impression share and click apply. And what that's referring to is the number of people that saw your ad, were shown your ad, versus the number of people that were searching for it, okay? So you can see here, we've got really quite high search impression share on these keywords. 89%, 80%, 90%, that's really quite high. Now, if your search impression share is quite low, you can see search impression shares of 20%, 30%, even lower, then there's a couple of things that might tell you. Firstly, it might mean that you're significantly able to scale your campaign, which is fantastic and exciting, because if you're only being shown to a small percentage of the searches, you could spend more, get more clicks, get more conversions. It also might be an indicator that you're bidding a little bit too low if you're using manual bidding, and by increasing that, you would put your ads in front of more people. That would typically be combined with not spending your daily budget. If you're not spending your daily budget and your search impression share is low, probably need to increase your bid. Google's gonna mention that. You're gonna see pop-ups in your ad account and things like that, telling you that you can spend more and get a larger search impression share. If you are seeing numbers like this, however, 90% or so, what that would often indicate is that there's not much scalability with the current keywords. We can't really spend more, get more clicks. We're kind of maxing these out. If we want to scale a campaign like this, we're going to have to go ahead and add in new keywords. That might be targeting more broad options. It might be setting up new ad groups with new search terms altogether. You would then have to go through the process of testing whether or not they're going to work. But it's a really important metric, because it's one of the things that people obviously want to do all the time with their ad campaigns, is work out, okay, this is working, this isn't working, can I scale this? What's that going to look like? Search impression share is a fantastic metric for being able to work that out. Okay, and before you go, I wanted to make sure you see my video on how to structure a Google Ads campaign. Campaign structure is a lot more important than most people think. I show you in this video here exactly how we structure Google Ad campaigns, from how many ad groups, keywords, all that sort of stuff. You can follow along and make sure you set it up the right way over here.